In our last lesson, I showed you how to customize individual components of a chart within the scope of a consistent chart type. That is, you modified a chart series in a line chart and a radar chart, and with those tools alone, you can create many useful types of charts. However, sometimes it would be nice to have a line chart on top of a bar chart, or in other words, some combination of chart types in a single chart. Excel provides some options for doing just that, and let's start with our baseball data to see how it works. There are plenty of reasons for why you might want to use a combination of chart types. For this chart, we're starting with a column chart, and then I'd like to add a line that indicates how many wins were necessary to reach the playoffs, as well as how many plate appearances an average player received that season. I can overlay a line chart onto the column chart so that we can see how each column compares to the line, as opposed to having an additional set of columns to compare. My new data follows the same setup as my old data, and it's been added as standard series just as any others. To turn this chart into a combination chart, I'm going to select the chart, I'm going to go to the design under the chart tools, and I'm going to go to change chart type, just as if I was going to change the entire chart. At the bottom of my all charts options, I can see a combo button. Within the combo area, I can mix and match chart types for each of the series within my chart. There are a few quick versions along the top that show a clustered column and a line, which splits the data in half and assigns lines to one half of the data and columns to the other half, which you can see down below here. Another version where the line is placed on a secondary axis, and finally a stacked area with columns. Think of these as examples of what you can do with these combo charts and that you can build from. Let's start with our clustered column line chart. This is actually what we want to make, but we have many options to choose from. Within the drop-downs for each series, I can select a whole host of chart types. Many of the simpler chart types are available here, such as the bar charts, column charts, area, pie, scatter, and radar. Of course, mixing and matching different chart types will only make sense with the appropriate data sets. However, you can see many potential options. For our playoff wins, I'm actually going to make it an area chart rather than a line chart. This chart now has 3 different chart types: a line chart, an area chart, and 2 column charts. I can assign different segments to the secondary axis by selecting the check marks next to the series and watch the chart update in real time. I'm going to put playoff wins and total team wins on their own axis. That's the basics to creating combo charts. Now let's look at some of the rules and restrictions that apply to mixing the different chart types. As you can see from the example, column charts and line charts and area charts all work together fairly well since they can share the same axes. But some of the chart types do not mix so nicely without following certain rules. Consider the radar chart. If I try to make any of these charts into a radar chart, I get an error that says the selected chart type requires the secondary axis that an existing chart is using. Please select another chart type. When plotting radar and pie charts, you can lay them on top of a column or line chart. However, you cannot have any series using these secondary axes. So I can uncheck the secondary axes, change one of these to a radar chart, and it works. Of course, with this dataset, a radar chart doesn't really make any sense. Now that I have the radar plotted, though, I cannot add anything else that would require a secondary axis, such as a pie chart, because again, the secondary axis is already in use. With these combinations, you can create a huge variety of useful charts by mixing and matching different chart types together. This concludes this course's coverage of the standard chart types, but this chapter will conclude itself with one final video that covers a useful new tool to Excel that functions very similarly to a chart, but isn't quite a chart, the Bing Maps app.